He talks out of the...
It's all part of the growing pains of doing a podcast.
What a growing pains guy.
Okay.
Welcome back, bro. Episode 8. Holy. 8 weeks, bro. We've been going 8 weeks.
Happy 2 months, man.
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
Do you remember those days when, like, you used to have a high school relationship and you used to celebrate your months? Did you? Happy 2 months.
Yeah, I don't remember having any high school relationships, bro. I was one of those only the lonely guys.
Only the lonely.
Bum 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 be doo.
Let's talk about celebs, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about celebs.
Sully, what a Bob Marley guy.
Hey, I want to love you and treat you right. Bro, where do we even start with this, brother, eh?
Oh my gosh. Man. So I was thinking, you know, when there's revolutionary people that have done things within society that have changed or molded the way that things go. And Bob Marley is one of those people. His music cut across to all nations, all peoples. I remember when I was in Africa, dude, they loved Bob Marley over there. So New Zealand, I grew up listening to Bob Marley with the family. You know, it'd be on when you're having a party. So everybody loved a bit of Uncle Bob. And over here in England, man, people love Uncle Bob. But you know, what do we know about him? I've seen documentaries on him and stuff. And I wish that he was still around and I could have gone to a concert. And I do remember that when he was in New Zealand, he was madly loved, and he loved the country.
It's crazy how powerful music is, because obviously before you know about the man, unless you're from Jamaica and he's a part of your culture and the makeup of your nation, you just know his music. You know his music like all around. And it was interesting going to the UK and being part of a cast where I worked, where a lot of the contingent was Caribbean, and to be more specific, Jamaican. And it was cool, sort of, because obviously there's the reggae influence and the reggae movement, and it was interesting to sometimes play my jams, which is our Kiwi version of reggae, and them kind of going, hey, what's that music? Like, it's familiar, but it's different. And to hear them feedback about what they thought about our style of reggae, like, man, it's same, but it's different. But I can hear the church influence, and especially with island reggae. Island reggae is like, I can hear like the church influence in the way you harmonize, but I can hear that undertone of the reggae, that sort of reggae drone beat and strum that kind of carries the music. And then them being blown away to hear like how much Bob Marley is looked up to in our country, bro. It's pretty cool. I didn't know he was mixed race, bro, until a couple of years ago. I didn't even know that.
So I saw a documentary 2016, and that covered a lot of his upbringing, but also it covered how many women he was with. My guy got around. He jumped a few fences and had a whole bunch of kids. This guy.
Lyricist, his lyrics too. I think of it, you know, with reggae and Bob in particular, I've started to listen a lot more so to his lyrics, and hearing how much of a pioneer he was in terms of the cultural movement and what he stood for. Like growing up, I didn't really listen. It was the vibe. It was just the vibe. And I suppose that's an interesting thing too, is that vibe that was healing, yes, amongst the lyrics that he sang, but it was all encompassed in his music. He's the man.
It's amazing, like now, as we are older, and we can probably understand lyrics a little bit better, and when you have context to the lyrics, things make a lot more sense now. So when you used to just sing along, it sounded like a really nice song. Like you said, the vibe, you just went along with the vibe and the feel. And then you find out that, that really, really cool song had a very heavy political push to it. And, I'm sure you saw in the documentaries that there were the two guys that were running against each other. And Bob's whole point was, well, they wanted to bring Bob in because he had such a huge influence on the people. And, he brought them into the concert and got them to kind of like, connect. Could You Be Loved? Great song. And, you'd think Could You Be Loved would be a love ballad or something like that, right? But it's not. It's not at all.
Because as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the lyrics to No Woman, No Cry. And obviously you can hear political sentiments in that first verse. Said, I remember when we used to sit in the government yard in Frenchtown. Is it Frenchtown? Observing the hypocrites. I can't remember. I can't
As
say
we
the lyrics.
mingle with the good people.
As we mingle with the good people we meet. It's crazy, man. It's crazy that you bring that up too. And I think it makes sense as to why his stuff really resonated with our people of the land and our Pacific people. Like, if you think of space,
the struggle, bro. The struggle.
Yeah, the struggle, and sometimes the making sense of it and moving through that just with creating space and community. And like, it makes sense as the lyrics don't have to, but what he did, he brought that all together with his music. And maybe that's what, especially within our 70s movements that we had here, with that struggle, and obviously the struggle that sort of still happens in a lot of the community. Do you think Bob Marley would have been a vaxxer or an anti-vaxxer? That's a rhetorical question.
To be honest, bro, I think because he was anti-government as such, I think that anything government agenda pushed, he possibly would have been against.
Ooh, that is so fitting for where we are today. I can imagine a lot of people jamming Bob Marley right now and go, I ain't gonna get that vax. Jam Bob Marley, could you be loved?
That's where one of the most famous interviews with him happened. And it's the one where the interviewer says, are you rich? What do you mean rich? That one. That's where that interview happened.
I know exactly that. I know that interview you're talking about, but I had no idea it was in Aotearoa, bro.
Yeah, bro. It's a shame that he died so early. That's a shame. Gangrene?
Really?
Something like that. He slipped or something and injured his foot playing football, hanging out. And someone said he slipped on a banana. It was something, I don't know. But he got a little injury, didn't take care of it, and ended up dying from it.
Kia ora, Uncle Bob. Thank you, brother.
Hot chat.
What's up, dogs? You know what is up, dogs? You know what is up, dogs? It's the fact that our country is still named New Zealand after all this time. It's an interesting one, bro. Because if you consider the fact that we live in the nation that we do today, which is so mixed and diverse. In thinking about our history, yes, you do want a name that encompasses everything. I personally believe it should be Aotearoa, but if there's someone on the other end, right, of the spectrum or the scale that goes, nah, we need something that encompasses everything, you could still even argue the point that what the heck does New Zealand even mean? Poverty Bay.
Unlucky.
Cooks. Like, come on. Like some Pakeha man, landed here, and he called the land Poverty Bay, which was producing life at the time, producing a life source to a people that was living here already. So it's kind of like you can look at it both ways. One, it probably should be a Maori name, or two, if it's going to be an English name, like, can we change it?
Well, I'm gonna have to be devil's advocate here, brother. So I'm tangata whenua, bro. But mate, it's been New Zealand since I was born, and before I was born. It was New Zealand when my mum was growing up, It was New Zealand when her mum was growing up. So we've got generations after generations of it being called New Zealand. Who's the one that's actually squealing? Which people group right now is squealing for it to be changed to a Māori name?
There's been a huge restoring of balance since I've noticed since coming back, and it started even with the reo, bro. Like Te Wiko Te Reo Māori was last week, and I've noticed in many different sort of small facets of our community that there's been a huge resurgence, not just from Māori, to answer your question, from Pākehā and everyone of the like that lives in every other non-Māori ethnic group that lives in New Zealand.
Who says it's unbalanced? I don't understand.
If we can go to the 3Ps, bro, I reckon. If we can look at the 3Ps in the treaty, partnership, protection, participation. Freak, I better be right. I better have not got that wrong. In honouring those three things, you've got to look at. You can't not look at the things that I'm talking about.
I just find it strange that these things are becoming issue.
But it's not that point of going, hey, give me this, give me that, give us this back. It's something that wouldn't hurt anybody. It's actually restoring, I think maybe restoring identity.
So why should it be called a Māori name? We weren't the first settlers. Why isn't it going to be called a Moriori name? They were the people before us, and I know there wasn't any treaty because the Māori made them slaves and we ate them. We killed that people group. Because people seem to think, the Māoris are the tangata whenua. But no, we through the act of war, we usurped the actual people who were there before us. Then the same thing happened to us with the colonials coming through. They usurped us. So yeah, there was a treaty, but it was spoils of war. We lost that. It wasn't that like there was a fair trade and then we shook hands and like it was like, hey guys, let's all work together. Well, clearly it wasn't, because they outgunned us. They turned our own people against us. It was acts of war. And in acts of war, the spoils go to the winner. I know this is not going to be very pleasantly taken by a lot of people, but again, I'm playing devil's advocate because who does the... Is it about... So if it's about identity, it's... This is why I said before, when we had our other conversations, that my culture isn't my identity. My identity is me. I'm my identity, and I express myself through a culture. It's not the other way around. The culture doesn't make me its identity. It's that I express a culture. There are things that we could fight over, and I think there are things that need to be restored and rectified, but at what cost? So we have balance. The balance is that we're called New Zealand, even though I'm not there. I'm an expat. But New Zealand has balance. It's had balance for many years. One of the main issues that we have, though, putting the name aside, is our representation of Māori and Pacific Islanders within the political realm. But that being said, how many times have we been let down by greedy Māoris that have been in power, that are working for themselves and not really for the people? Again, politicians. Who do we know who to trust? You can never really trust a politician. You know, it's just like the old saying: you can't trust a lawyer or a car salesman. And I hate to generalize, but if you're getting into politics, then usually there's something a bit off about you.
Yeah, I hear you, bro. And I actually agree with a lot of your sentiments. But when someone said to me the other day about the name, it got me. Because I was like, well, that's true. It doesn't actually represent anyone then. You're right. Because we grew up with the name, our parents grew up with the name, it's become, in a way, our identity. That country that we grew up in, of New Zealand.
I guess, I've never really had an issue. There are times when I called New Zealand Aotearoa, and if someone else called it Aotearoa, then it was Aotearoa. When we had the national anthem sung, it was sung one verse in English, it sung one verse in Māori. One was called God Defend New Zealand, one says Aotearoa. Like, there's no drama.
Yeah.
That
we can coexist.
Because that's what we're meant to do. Like, instead of causing division, and this kind of stuff we got to be careful of because it causes division. And then not only that, it becomes politicized like every other thing, and then it turns man against man. And so, like, then we end up having these discussions. It's okay between you and I. We can have these discussions. We can disagree and agree, but we can be honest with each other and not hate each other and love each other at the end of this and not separate. But many people get pulled into the politicized version of this. Then they get emotional, and then it causes division. There's loads of things happening at the moment in the world that is causing division. And it's causing one man to go against another because you have two different views. Because some dickhead is politicizing the issue. Aotearoa and New Zealand doesn't need to be politicized. We can find a way for it to coexist. Yes, call it Aotearoa. Yes, call it New Zealand. Like, why? One doesn't have to usurp the other. One doesn't have to replace. But when you go to overseas, into most English-speaking countries, they're going to call it New Zealand.
And you're right. You bring up a good point. Everything I think, should come down to intention. And if someone doesn't want to use the word Aotearoa, then that should be okay. And if someone doesn't want to use the word New Zealand, then that should be okay. And if someone wants to use both, voila,
Honestly, my default is to think emotionally.
Yeah,
and I've had to learn critical thinking. So I like when you say Aotearoa, it should be Aotearoa. Fucking belongs to the Maoris. You know what I mean? Yeah, Aotearoa, hard, bro. But then my own kicks in, and I'm like, yeah, but why? What's the purpose? Who's pushing the agenda? Like, is anyone causing drama about it? If there's no drama about it, then just call it Aotearoa. You know. Then they were doing the whole thing about the flags, remember? Change the flag. Fuck off, dickhead. Relax. Just take a relaxative. Hey, bro, do you know what time it is?
What time?
I don't know. It doesn't matter what time it is. Oh, kia ora. It doesn't matter what you think.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, bro, what you think, because no matter how much I try and think about this one, I still don't get it.
Go on.
So,
what? Where are you heading? What's happening here?
No. Okay. Like, secret societies, right? Secret societies, cool. It interests me, bro, a lot. But, and maybe there's like this realm that I don't see, bro, in our country or in our city. But we moved up here to Orewa my family moved here last year. When I came back into the country, I moved in. There's a Masonic hall. Like, there's a church. There's an Anglican church. Then there's a Presbyterian church, and then there's a Masonic hall. Like, and I'm like, oh shucks, I don't meet these. Like, sometimes I meet the Anglicans. Sometimes I meet the Catholics. And you're like, oh yeah, cool. And you meet the Mormons, but you hardly meet someone that's like, hey, I'm a Masonic. Like, maybe, but it's weird because it's like, you hear that they're secret societies, but that's not underground cave, like hidden in the bloody side of a cliff somewhere. It's just right there. And I'm like, freak, where are these guys? What are they about? Like, the only thing I know about Masonry is I think that it's somehow linked to the foundations of American government. And then, like, I used to watch some episodes of The Simpsons, bro. Remember?
Go on, The Simpsons teaching
and like, bro, and I would sort of know about it through that. But that's sort of all I know, bro. Do you know much about Masonry?
About the Masonics. So I think that they kind of trace their history back to the stonemasons from Egypt. I think that in order to be a mason, you have to have some sort of higher being. You submitted to some sort of higher being. I think it was started in Europe somewhere. I think one of the biggest lodges in Scotland, maybe. I've met a few masons in my lifetime, and they are very, very kind and generous people. They like to do a lot of charitable acts, and the majority of the masons that I've met are very well off.
Oh, that's why they've got one in Orewa. Sorry. It's like
That's all good. It makes
predominantly
sense.
white, rich, really rich area.
Shot the North Shore, yeah, bro. But yeah, so my neighbor in our last house, he was a mason, and he tried to invite me along to their Poobah, Fred Flintstone Poobah, Grand Poobah Club, and he was telling me that he would pay some sort of fee, like £500 a year, like just to be a servant. Like they do these kind of like this is patriarchal levels of things, and he was like on the bottom tier, so he would wait tables and shit, and he would do like run around bumboy shit, and they got to dress up in their robes with their aprons, and from what I remember, you have to take certain vows, declaring your loyalty to the lodge and to the masons, and some of them are quite interesting because I think there's one where you walk around with like a noose over your head and your left tit showing, and you're on like a checkered floor, and you got to go through all these little processes, and like one of them is like, oh, if I do this, then may my guts be pulled up from me, or some sort of shit like that. Like you're kind of claiming some sort of weird shit over yourself.
It sounds like it's really linked to some old folklore. I can understand how that's sort of like you look at it as a weird thing, but look into all our cultures that in some of our ritualistic stuff, people can look at that and go, "Freak, that's weird." Because I first heard that noose thing and you talk about it, I'm going, "Shit, what the heck?" But obviously it comes from somewhere back in William Wallace's days. I don't know.
They've got a bad reputation when it comes to Christianity. I think Christians generally look down upon it as demonic, because I think that their higher being that they tend to worship, or their enlightenment, has got to do with Lucifer, something along those lines, and the all-seeing eye. It's very Egyptian in its nature, so it's just interesting. It interests me. Like I said, I've been asked maybe 3 or 4 times to come and join the Masons. So I live in the county of Kent, in the southeast of England, and I met the Grand Poobah, whatever they called, the dragon or whatever the hell they're called. I don't know the name, but like everybody was kissing his ass, man. So my guy was just sat there, and everybody was like handshaking, like, oh, kind of almost bowing to this geezer, and they're walking around, and I'm like, I think his name was Ray, and I'm like, Ray, man, what's happening? And I'm like, what? Like, what the fuck? These people just, why they all? It's just weird, man, because they're like, he's like a somebody, but you can't quite put your finger on it. Like, why are these people walking around here like they're on eggshells around you? It's just like, so I said to him, I went, well, no, we're having the conversation, and he goes, oh, Herb, he goes, you fancy coming along and joining the, his exact words were, you fancy coming along and joining the lodge? And I said, well, only if I can have your position. Because I'm not going to kiss anyone's ass to get up to anywhere. You might, if you're going to bring me in, I want to be brought in at your level or above. Like, because I'm not that guy. I'm not that one that's going to walk around and tickle everyone's balls and make them feel good. It's just not going to happen. So either you bring me in at a top level, or I don't know how this is going to work. So that's my only issue. And then my wife said, "No, don't do it." But yeah, I just thought it was just kind of strange.
Interesting. I think that's what, like, as you were talking about it, I was like, okay, cool. Community is community. If people find belonging in that, that's cool. But not everyone's going to dig it, and I don't dig it for that reason, because I go, this community is supposed to be about equality, like even within the church, even though it's sort of messed up, and some people freaking take power, take advantage of the power that they can gain. It's not supposed to be like that. It's not supposed to be like that. If it's you know, yes, as a man of or woman of the cloth, or as a pastor or someone who leads a church, you have a certain standing and a certain level of respect. But you are among the people. There's not this sort of bowing down thing, which does happen. We know it happens. We freaking know what happens within the church in some of our churches. But yeah, interesting, bro. Funny as that you got asked to lodge. So he should have shaken his hand and did the whole like tickle his
balls.
Do you want to join my lodge?
You could come and tickle my balls, man. Yeah. But he gave me his card, bro, and it had a whole bunch of letters on it. So when you're a doctor or something, it has like your I can't remember, like your doctorate and all the letters that follow. His one had like 10 or 11 letters after his name.
Did he seem like a good guy? Like
straight up. They all genuinely were really, really, I hate the word nice, but they were just nice people.
Yeah.
That they were kind, they were polite, we had great conversation, they were very generous, they oozed it. So I didn't find anything dark about them. I just thought that it was weird that everybody was tickling my man's balls to be around him. And they kind of, I wouldn't even say, it was like kind of flattery, and I hate flattery as it is. I think it's bollocks.
Yeah.
So, but they're kind of being flattering to him, and they're just walking around him like, oh yep, and then, oh, do you need me to do this, or do you want like just like you say, like some of the pastors, when you island church, bro, and you get the pastors and everyone's like, "Malo minister," those ones. Again, the reason that I wanted to actually have a look into the secret societies is there was a secret society called the Knights Templar, and rumor has it that they were the ones that held all the secrets. They're like when it comes to secret society, the Knights Templar are the secret holders, and like one of their secrets was they were meant to have found and know where the what is it called? The Ark of the Covenant is. So the Ark with the tablets from the Ten Commandments and the Yaji. So I thought, you know what? Now that sounds like something that's up my street. Like secrets and that kind of thing. And then you learn a secret art to keep away the bad guys, like that movie National Treasure. I think there are different types of secret societies over here, and some of them would probably be a bit more, what's the word? Sinister. Villainous than others. Some would just be kind of like men's groups, they get together like a men's meeting place, and then some would be like, yo, let's tie some ribbons around a tree and do some chanting and do some
and drink.
yeah. Let's eat a goat while it's still.
I'm tempted even just to walk into that Masonic hall now.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure you'll be allowed in. That's the thing. Because there's the inner circle. They got the closed doors and stuff, so where they have all their rituals and shit, you won't be allowed in there.
Secret societies, mate. It's all about me. It's all about you.
So last week we spoke a little bit about homosexuality, where some of it might stem from, that kind of thing. Could be based out of trauma. And that being said, we thought we would discuss Homo Erotica. What in the flying fuck? Where we can start is from experience. I think most guys will find it very difficult to admit that when they see a cock, they get a little bit turned on by it. When we were growing up in school, when anyone like saw a horse's cock or a dog's cock. You know, the kind of, you just looked, right? It was a cock. And I think for me, it became more prevalent with my porn addiction. So you started with the whole idea of comparison to what you saw on porno.
Going in the urinals and looking to your left or right every now and then, just to be like, see if you can compare your own to the guy next to you.
Exactly. And then noticing that as a male, you probably had more interest in the cock than a woman does. When you're at school as a teenager, you draw cocks everywhere. You know what I mean? Like,
that's so true, man.
The one when I was at secondary school, the one I hated the most was all the, not all of them, but there will be some guys in your class that will give you a smack in the balls. Like they give you the tap. I fucking hated that.
Bro, you weren't even here for the shoulder thing. Did you see that blow up?
I saw that. I didn't see it growing up. It wasn't in my school when I was at school, but I did hear about the...
That one's so funny, thing. Bro.
Yeah. Well...
For that reason. It's like, mate...
It sounds touching. Funny.
Yeah, it's also crossing the line.
Yeah, it sounds funny, but again, it's another bloke touching another bloke's fucking asshole and their bollocks or their cock. It just...
Yeah.
So then if we look at it from our experiential lenses, I can admit, I've got no problem admitting that, you know, I used to be turned on whenever I saw a cock. But a lot of that, again, I'm not trying to back out of this, but I know that a lot of that came from the trauma that that was imposed upon me, and from my early introduction to pornography. So, you know, seeing an erect penis was like, oh my god, yes. And then there were stages in my teenage years where I was unsure of my sexuality. So I actually thought that I was gay, because I thought that, you know, it was wrong for me to be turned on by a cock. And then I then came to realize that I wasn't gay, because the act of male and male sex could still turn me on, but you bring a male to my face and try to kiss me intimately, and I'm like,
you up.
Well, it's just, I'm like no, that's my space, like fucking out of my space, like that's too. I'm like, I'm getting into these ones, bro. So like it's danger zone, and that pretty much, you know, explained to me that I didn't want an intimate relationship with another man. I still to this day would probably get turned. Yeah, I still to this day get turned on by seeing a cock. I get more turned on by seeing vagina, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think it's built into male psyche, because we're so fucking obsessed with cock, and we are so obsessed with our own cock because we like touching it. Do you know what I mean? I think it's just a male thing, but we just need to kind of let the weight come off us, especially in the church. So in the church, we could never have these conversations, and then we have our teenagers which immediately turn to being gay because we can't have these conversations, and they might not be gay, but they've just taken that path and just decided to go that way. You know, and if you're gay, you're gay. I don't care. But what I'm saying is, hey, bro, that the options to have these conversations, be really open about it, were never there for me as a kid, because I didn't have any men that were secure in themselves enough to say, actually, it's kind of normal that you see a cock and you get a bit turned on.
Bro, there's so much gold in that story, brother. And I think so many more of these stories need to be shared from, and I want to stay away from using the straight or gay terms, but like from guys who identify as straight, because like you said, there's so much, I don't know, there's a toxicity that stops us from being able to share. I know for a fact too that I questioned my sexuality as a 13-year-old, and I could go in to talk about sort of that it was, I reckon it was also linked to what was going on a couple of years before in terms of the abuse and what that did to sort of exciting me. I remember the day that I was, and it's crazy what can happen when you actually take time. This is why I think these stories are needed and support is needed. You take time to find out who you are, because when you know, someone said, I can't remember, I watched it on a podcast, when you know who you are, you'll know what you are. And it just so happened that throughout my journey, I was able to find out later that, oh shucks, I wasn't gay. I just needed to find this out about myself. So I was 13 years old. I was at an all-boys school. And one day I just started looking across the table at this other boy. And I found myself looking at him and giving him a lot more attention than I would anyone else. And in my head, it was a bit weird. I was like, I'll be honest, it's not just me saying this, it wasn't sexual, but it was like, do I have feelings for this person? Like, why am I looking at him? Why am I looking at him? Why am I looking at him? And it got a bit obsessive to the point where I was like, oh no, this is something. This is something. It got, and here's the thing, bro. It never again happened with anybody else, right? But one day, I saw this guy again at a party after college, like after college years. And it was one of those moments, bro, where you're at the party and you see someone in your peripheral. And I saw him in my peripheral and I was like, that's him. And I was like, if I look at him again and I feel something, shit, I'm going to have to call mum and say, mum, I think I'm gay.
Oh dear.
And I turned and I looked at him and nothing. Like there was nothing. If anything, you know that feeling that you described when you were like, oh, it was like, oh shit, bro, that man could have even been Skux, because I didn't even think, you know, you were like, oh, bro, come on, man. When I was looking at you as a 13-year-old, I was like, and anyway, it goes beyond this, because at that moment I went, oh, sweet, I'm not gay. But I still don't know what that was. But here's the thing, bro, I was yet to find out. And it's crazy how for me, everyone's story is going to be different. For me, this was linked to my identity, who I was. You know I'm a half caste, bro. You know I'm an Afakasi. You know growing up, I surrounded myself with my Polynesian side because that's where I grew up in Auckland, and those were the experiences that I had. I never ever had a connection to my Croatian side. I only had one Croatian cousin and she was a girl. I never had a Croatian boy cousin that I could go, this guy is like me. This is another likeness to me. We can grow up together.
Mm.
The only other time I met another Croatian boy, it was him. I went to this all boys school, and I realized this when I went to Croatia, bro. I went to Croatia and I found my roots and I found my family again. And it's crazy what you can find out when you find out about yourself. All of these things started to come together. And it was a subconscious thing. One day I was there and freaking out. I know shit's real when my hairs stand up, because they're standing up now. And I went, and I started thinking about him. And I went, of course I looked at you. And of course, there was this confusion of sexuality because of what happens to me, and that's why trauma is so important. It's so important to anyone watching this to get support about you. Bro. He belonged to me, and I could have very well made the choice at that age. I'm gay. I'm going down this point. I'm going down this path, which would have been okay too. But my point is, this whole gender bending LGBTQ movement is going so far that we're stopping the space from helping people find out who you are first, so you know what you are. Rather than going, oh, you've got a glimpse of it, you're gay. You've got a glimpse of it, you're gay. Yep. Mate, and I'm glad we can share the stories, because people can now hear this and not sort of go, you're straight-splaining. No, we're
not. Cancelled.
It's real, man. And I know we're two of many other men out there that have had our own versions of these experiences and come to realize, oh shucks, I'm not gay. and it doesn't, it goes beyond gay. It goes into finding out who you are. We're all trying to find out who we are, bro. And it makes sense to me now why I can find myself in positions, no pun intended, um,
Not this again.
where oh, like awkward positions where someone thinks that something's there, and I'm like, oh shit, nah, brother, I'm just really comfortable with my fellow affection and intimacy with another man right now because I know who I am, even though you probably perceive that there's something going on here. That's why I think toxic masculinity can also come from the gay arena, not just straight men, because I've had this from a lot of gay men. I've had it from women too, who perceive me a certain way that you've got to be gay. Like I'm like, really? Like, are you really that surface level that it's just black and white to you?
Yeah, and but this should be normal because at the age of 13 and 14, most 13 and 14-year-olds are trying to figure out their sexuality. But we weren't told this. We were told it's like that and it's like that. So having the people above us to have these conversations, I hope that I can have these conversations with my children.
Yeah.
I hope that I've brought them up well enough that they can have the courage to come and have a chat to me and know that I won't judge them either way with whatever they decide to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, I hope I've done that right. Bro, beautiful story. And I resonate because it makes sense. Do you know what I mean? So, Point Aaron Pools. You know Point Aaron Pools in Ponsonby? Everybody who grew up in Grey Lynn, Ponsonby, you know Point Aaron Pools, man. Don't even lie. So, I'm at Point Aaron Pools and I'm taking a shower. And then, because I was getting all the chlorine off and getting ready to go. And then an older boy walked into my shower and then started rubbing up against me. And at the time I was taken aback, and then he pulled out his cock and he's just like, yeah, touch it, and do that. And I was like, oh fuck, like fuck off. And then I remember just kind of skedaddling. But that evening, and for a few nights after that, I couldn't stop obsessing over seeing his cock and feeling attracted to that situation. And then I started to fantasize of what that would look like. Again, I was about 12, 13. And I started fantasizing what that would look like, if he was to have sex with me. Or I was to do something with that cock. Do you know what I mean? And I started fantasizing about that. And so I think about that now, and it's still very normal. Mm-hmm. Even if I hadn't have gone through the traumas that I'd gone through, I was still introduced to porn at a very young age. Even if I wasn't introduced to porn at a young age, that's still very normal in the sense that it was a sexual encounter, and it would have been better if I was consenting to what was going on that happened to me. But if we were two young boys in a shower experimenting and having a look, then that probably would have been better. Do you know what I mean? Like for an experience. But because it was forced upon me again, and it looked exactly the same as the fucking spirit from the last time, from when I was a kid and when I was a young child, then I was attracted to the abuse in that. I was attracted to the trauma. I was attracted to my power being taken from me and wanting to submit to it. That's interesting. So,
woo.
Yeah, it doesn't make me gay, and I don't care. I'm not anti-gay, but it doesn't make me gay. But it means that these things should be up for discussion.
There's that dichotomy between excitement but guilt. Or did you feel any negative, I don't know, negative emotions, any guilt around the fact that it excited you? Or was it just was?
I didn't feel any guilt then. I felt guilt when I was an older man.
Yeah.
And I think, so even now when I think about it, there's still a part of me that gets excited by it
Yeah.
and wishes
Yeah.
I could go back to that moment and then do something with that cock. That's just the honest truth.
Yeah, bro.
Okay,
Yeah.
that just sexually, I want to do something with that.
Mm.
So that's still kind of here. It still sits around here, and for me, that's still a part of me that needs healing, because that's not right. It's not wrong that I was attracted to cock, but it's not right that I'm attracted to the abuse. I'm attracted to that trauma. I wanted to be controlled and overridden. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's what happened to me with my abuse.
Yeah.
My control and was taken from me.
Interesting. Because as you talk about that, I'm out of the 3 times that I was abused, the one that really affected me the most, and I think still manifests in different ways in my adult life, is the third one, and it was the time where there was the most drastic gap in age, the most drastic gap in power, and also what was done to me. The reason I asked about the guilt feelings is because just for me, I felt excited, bro, but I felt shame about that at that age. I just did. I just did. But I'm not gonna lie. There was an extreme excitement, obviously for obvious reasons. Like, one, you're not fucking supposed to feel that shit, and that's the first time you're feeling something. It's like your first hit of of drugs. Like, it was. I can almost like take myself into the room, and it was almost a head rush. There was almost this head rush of wow. And I remember walking back down the hallway, started playing again with, I was probably in shock, and I went to him again in the afternoon, and I asked him if he could show me again. It's so interesting, right? It's so interesting. For me, I've gone back to him in terms of that young boy and gone, hey, it's okay. But for years, for so many years, this was a never tell a soul part. And here I am on Tapu Two sharing it when possibly freaking thousands and thousands of people could watch it, and I don't give a shit.
Of course.
I hope
Exactly.
they do.
And I hope it helps somebody.
I hope it helps somebody. And you're right about it sort of having still staying with you in a way, and those things that the more you revisit something, the more you build up your armor, the more light. I like the thing that we keep sort of bringing this back up. The more light we shed on it, the more you're able to zoom in on it more and go, okay, I see what you are. I see why I'm feeling this today.
I think the word that I was looking for with the control being taken is being dominated.
Yeah.
It's funny because when I think about it, we talk about this stuff, and I'm trying to process when I actually got healed, mostly from this stuff. I think, from the last episodes, it's only being able to bring it to the light and speak about it that's brought me healing. So none of this has ever been spoken to a therapist. When it's come to my therapy, I can't even remember the shit that I talked about in my therapy, but it had nothing to do with this, my sexual stuff.
You're so, how healing is there's not one shoe that fits all, right?
Yeah, and things come out.
There's not one light, but
time.
There's some light bulb moments, and there's some things over time. Yeah, man.
If people get triggered by this, we're not just saying stuff to trigger people. We're saying stuff for people to understand that your darkness doesn't need to remain in the darkness. It can come out to the light. That's the whole purpose of this. If we were looking to intentionally trigger people, then I'd have a problem, because we would be out to harm people. That's not the intention of this. The intention of this is we share our stories to show our transparency and our congruence to what we're saying, so that anyone who has some sort of resonance with our story can find healing. And we've been seeing that in our comments. And I know you've been reading them as well as I. I read our comments that come. Mate, YouTube comments. I'm like, people are typing this stuff publicly. They're showing their darkness in the light publicly on our comments. That's something. That's powerful. That's showing you the power of what we're doing. It's so powerful that people have found the courage to write their story on a public forum for everyone to see. God. Oh, play us a song, Jake. Sing us a song, Beth. Check this out. The reason I played this song, one, we love Bob, but two, when over here in the UK, bro, my closest oos, my closest toko, my closest baji, my bro here, his name's Tony, bro. Him and I have been brothers, bro. He's my adopted bro. He's my blood. But we had to lay to rest our young one, his youngest brother, and when the hearse was driving off to take him, we played this song on the street.
If them win the revolution, them have to win it with Rasta. You can't win no other way, because if you win other way, you have to fight again. When you Rasta win, then no more war.
And his name was Niku, but his nickname was Rasta. Big bless up, Niku. Rest in love, bro. Of the Iron Man say, Babylon, your throne gone down, gone down. Babylon, your throne gone down. Yeah, thank you, Bob. So,
Rest in love,
big bless up to Niku. Miss you, bro. If you've liked what you've heard and what you've seen on the Tapu Two, why don't you subscribe to our YouTube or check out our podcast on Spotify. The other thing is we've started up a Patreon.
A PayPal account.
We're looking to purchase some gear. So if you fancy supporting us financially, why don't you do that? Go to the link in our bio. Just click on the button.
And on the PayPal.
Send some cash. It's all good. It's going to go towards us buying more gear so that we can actually bring better quality, because we're playing on these second-hand laptops, and hey, we're still able to bring.
Move.
We're using what we have to bless up the people out there. Big up your chests.
I don't want any talk.